is not over yet. It looks like the fun's finally started.
Royal Academy, we're not finished yet!
Hey there, welcome to another episode of Remote RPGs. As a gamer, I don't usually spend my free time doing physical activity, so to compensate, I spend time playing virtual sports. It's a sport, damn it! But unfortunately, I can't think of any sports-based RPGs that came out in North America. But wait! What if that game only came out in Europe, so it was still fully translated and ready to play? That's it. Let's review an unheard of and simply amazing DS game, Inazuma 11.
Inazuma 11!
Oh, sorry. I meant Inazuma 11. Inazuma 11, aka Lightning 11, is a DS game released in Japan in 2008, but soon it was fully translated into English and released in Europe in 2011. The game was developed by the great company Level 5, the minds behind the Dark Cloud series, Dragon Quests 8 and 9, and of course, the prominent Professor Layton series. Despite good sales in Japan and Europe, 2 sequels, and an anime series, the game was never released in North America, and I'm really not sure why. So how can I sum up Inazuma 11? It's a soccer-based RPG where you have to recruit, equip, and train a high school soccer team, as it mixes RPG elements with sports-based gameplay. I remember stumbling across this game randomly, hearing about a football-based RPG, and saying, an RPG based off some crash and bash American football? Yes please! Then I saw it wasn't American football, but European football. Yes, soccer, which is considerably less badass. However, I soon found that this is a DS title that needs to be played right now if you're even remotely into sports games and simple fun. I'm really happy I stumbled upon Inazuma 11 because this is a quality game that I never hear people talk about. Inazuma 11 follows the adventures of high school student Mark Evans, a young goalkeeper and captain of the unmotivated Raymond Football Club. And how can you not be motivated with this guy at the helm? Mark looks like he's ready to do an 80s workout video. Seriously, who still wears a headband? He looks like that guy from Code Geass. But yeah, Mark's seriously into football to the point where it's all he thinks or talks about. And he thinks that anything and everything can be solved by playing soccer. I think his motto is,
but none of these things matter when we score a goal.
As the grandson of one of the greatest goalkeepers of all time, Mark must recruit members and motivate his team to take on other high school teams in the national football frontier to achieve their dream of becoming the champs. However, sinister figures lurk in the background, and the past and present begin to collide in a story about perseverance, friendship, and, well, soccer. Yeah, I know. It's the first time you're not trying to save the world. You just play soccer. Kind of refreshing. I have to say that I really love how insane these people are about soccer. For example, one team destroys the brakes on another team's bus just to win the game. And there's another occasion where a team tries to flat out murder players on the other team by dropping steel bars in the middle of the field. It's just high school football. What do you have to say for this, Mark?
But none of these things matter when we score a goal.
Wow, you're kind of a douchebag. In case you haven't picked up on it, this game has a pretty lighthearted story, and it clocks in around 15 hours, and it was pretty predictable. Although the game didn't overstay its welcome, I wish it was a little longer, and I also wanted them to spend a bit more time with the characters, but what you get is still good. The characters and the messages are so simplistic and cheesy that it works, as the game takes itself seriously, but not overly save the world seriously. Like, how simplistic is this game? Well, the main villain's name is Ray Dark. Ray Dark. Ugh. In terms of the characters, they do develop and have a few dimensions, but they're still really simple, which is fine by me because, well, damn it, it's a game about kicking a ball around. You want a Shakespearean masterpiece or something? To play or not to play? That is the question. I'm not even going to bother going over these characters because of their simplicity. Just know that there's the passionate and naive hero, the quiet and cool badass, the love interest, that rich bitch, the fat guy, and Steve. There's always a Steve. But after going through some winding RPG stories and complex characters in games like Xenogears or The World Ends With You, a predictable story that's easy to follow is something RPG gamers can appreciate sometimes. The game's style is actually very similar to the Battle Network series, in both its characters and humor. Unfortunately, in that same vein, there's a lot of fetching and running around in this game as well, but it manages to be less frequent than Battle Network. Oh shit, I didn't write in a transition to gameplay. Expensive transition and stuff! The gameplay in Inazuma 11 is actually pretty deep. You spend the game running around and completing various tasks in a simple RPG fashion, complete with various NPCs and random encounters. However, you also manage your own team by training them in different facilities, playing 3-on-3 matches, and generally using tactics to overcome your opponents. You'll play many different teams over your course of your adventure, including groups from a ninja school and an otaku team. Okay. Each player comes with their own stats and equipment to manage, so you'll have a lot of micromanagement to consider. You can also recruit students from other clubs and schools to play for you with a really simple scouting system. Yeah, that's right. You can flat out steal players that you beat in a tournament and then use them to win that same tournament. So, how does it feel to cheat the system, you asshats?
But none of these things matter when we score a goal.
With so many unique players to find and experiment with, there's a heavy amount of replay value in Inazuma 11. And the custom team that you make can also be used to play against friends with the same game. The multiplayer aspect is awesome, and I dare you to try and win against my legendary crew, the Cockslappers. The only complaint I have with the scouting system is, well, it's not very necessary. I played through the game with most of the original characters because I felt attached to them, and their stats were good enough, so I never really felt the need to change it up. Add in the fact that you have to use certain characters to continue the game, and it feels like that large roster of characters was a cool addition, but not really necessary. I did feel that the equipment was especially weak and unnecessary addition. It just felt like another thing to micromanage. It didn't need to be there. Okay, enough beating around the bush. Let's get right down to that ball action. Yeah, I'm sorry. I needed at least one ball joke. I'm contractually obligated. The meat of the game is obviously playing soccer, which functions as the battle system of the game. And by battle system, I mean it. Mark solves all of his problems by playing soccer, and people just go along with it. Bullies play soccer, and they leave. Mind control devices play soccer, problem solved. Going against a group of heavily trained armed thugs that could easily beat the crap out of high schoolers? No, they play soccer with you. And when they lose the soccer game, they leave defeated. What the hell is this? Mark, how can you justify teaching something so stupid to kids?
But none of these things matter when we score a goal.
As I mentioned, you play full-out story-driven soccer games and also get into random encounters, where you play a 3-on-3 game with certain objectives like score the first goal, don't let the other team score, etc. The encounters themselves can be quite lengthy, but fortunately, the random encounter rate is really reasonable, and you have the option to raise that encounter rate if necessary. The players move around themselves unless you direct them, and like any soccer game, you can pass, shoot, and defend in a simple style not unlike Mega Man Soccer, which I never thought I would reference ever, or Mario Strikers. When a player with the ball comes into contact with another player, the action freezes, and you're given options depending on your situation. You have to consider many probabilities like the anticipation of enemy moves, elements, and positioning. There's so many ways to play, like full-out offense, clever positioning, or just tiring out the other team and striking them when they're vulnerable. It's really up to you. Anyone familiar with soccer will become immediately familiar with the gameplay. But if you hate sports, then stay far away. Go back to your basement, play World of Warcraft, and do whatever you people do. An important thing that you have to get used to is the special moves, where players perform superhuman and downright insane maneuvers. Of course, there's a limit to how often you can do them, and they don't always work as planned, but man, just look at how brutal some of these moves are. No one's safe. Look at this. Think of the head trauma this poor kid's gonna have. Like, show some mercy.
But none of these things matter when we score a goal.
At first, getting used to playing will be pretty difficult, as there isn't a strong in-game tutorial. You really just have to keep practicing and figure things out yourself. Once you do though, you begin to see how much fun the soccer in this game is, as scoring a goal is something that feels really rewarding. If you're having a lot of trouble with a certain team, just make sure you keep training your players. My favorite way to do so, other than training montages, is epic box lifts. In terms of difficulty, the beginning is actually the most difficult part, but soon it becomes a reasonable challenge that never got too frustrating. That is, unless you're forced to score in a certain way in order to satisfy the fat, greedy plot, and that was really annoying. But if you train your players with a higher encounter rate, you don't even need to use the many training facilities that the game gives you. Really, all you need is some decent strategy and patience, and this game was actually too easy. In fact, the hardest time I had with it was with the team called Occult High, which was the second school that you played in the whole game. I even beat the final team on my first try, and I don't know if it's because I'm really good or the game was easy. Probably the latter. Another nitpick I had was how close the camera was. I wish it was further out so that the refs wouldn't call me offside all the time, and I could get a better gauge of my team's position on the field. Speaking of refs, they seem to call fouls at complete random, which was annoying, but hey, it's a lot like real soccer. Also, you are controlling 11 players at once with the DS stylus, so things just naturally get a bit clusterfucked at times. However, I will say that the DS controls of Inazuma 11 were fantastic, as they felt simple, clean, and necessary, as this is a game that could clearly only work on the DS. Even the use of the top screen always displayed something useful. Overall, the soccer in Inazuma 11 clearly had a lot of work put into it, and although it could feel a little clunky and not user-friendly at times, it still managed to be pretty deep, rewarding, and lots of fun if you can get into it. Something this game did extraordinarily well was tying the gameplay to the story. The way this was done was actually a lot like the masterful character development in Mega Man X, as the first team you play absolutely decimates you, and this motivates you and your team to get as strong as they are, so you can do all the cool stuff they can do. As I said, the story is simple, but the overall themes of perseverance and becoming stronger is just really well executed. I also really just love the content they threw into Inazuma 11, from the multiplayer to the individual player bios and more. However, they threw in some stupid shit, like a blog. Yeah, the team manager has a blog that's basically useless, but what's really creepy is how that girl instantly blogs about things even when she's nowhere to be seen. Or is she? However, her creepiness is only eclipsed by the one guy who comments on all of her posts. He creeps the hell out of me. Oh, take it off screen! I especially love how you find items in the game, like here. Oh, milk in a treasure chest in the school parking lot? Yes, please! Man, does anyone even care about school in this game? Stop thinking about football, Mark. You're gonna fail.
None of these things matter when we score a...
Yes, it does matter, Mark. What if you injure yourself and you can't play football? Who's gonna support you then? Come on, man. I'm just looking out for you, bro. Come on, man. Give me a hug.
Bad touch!
The graphics in Inazuma 11 are really just amazing. Okay, so the in-game regular graphics aren't anything special. They're colorful and interesting to look at, but the characters always seem to be bobbing their heads to something. There were some cool animated cutscenes and even quality voice acting. Where the graphics really stand out is during the soccer games, when special moves are being animated. They didn't skimp out on the graphics here, as every shot and technique is always interesting to look at. With a lot to explore and see, the graphics and style in Inazuma 11 is just some great stuff and definitely a highlight of the game. The music was also pretty good, and get this, I was so surprised that the composer for this game was actually my favorite video game composer, Yasunori Mitsuda. Yep, the genius behind Chrono Trigger, Cross, and Xenogears was responsible for this soundtrack, and although the work in this game isn't as amazing as those other ones, it's still powerful and at least a few songs will stick with you. So, to conclude, Inazuma 11 is a really great game that more people need to play. It has a simple premise, but clearly a lot of effort was put into the gameplay as it overcomes its minor flaws and should definitely be remembered as a classic for the DS. Of course, the RPG elements aren't very heavy, so I'm hesitant to recommend this game unless you enjoy sports games. If you don't, then Inazuma 11 probably won't change your mind, but I'd say it's at least worth a shot. I mean, strike. Regardless. I'm also going to say that tracking down this game without emulation is actually pretty difficult, but whatever works. Well, thanks for watching, guys, but please excuse me. I've got soccer practice. Come on, guys. I know it's a team effort, but why do I have to be the distraction? Oh my god, I'm gonna die!
But none of these things matter when we score a goal. Inazuma 11. Tackle your fears with all your courage. Trust in your friends and you can win. No matter what the weather, it's sunny in our hearts. Kick off, the passes fly like lightning. Good ball, the tension's so exciting. We'll do our best together until the game is won. When we're together, we practice to be strong. People put us down, saying we're the underdogs. The road to the final is long and hard, but none of these things matter when we score a goal. Hey! Stand up if you love football. Our passion for football shines like lightning. Stand up if you love football. Never give up until the final whistle. Stand up if you love football. Inazuma 11. Inazuma, hey! Inazuma, here we go.